Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bollywood Cinema Club, where we take a look at Indian cinema every other week. I am the host of the Culture Cast, Chris Dashiu, and I will be your guide through this episode of the Bollywood Cinema Club. I am joined on this episode. You've heard him here before. You've heard him on the Culture Cast. If you've listened to the first two Dhoom episodes, he's been here through this journey of Dhoom. Your friend and mine, one of the co-hosts of Rankin' on Bass, Richard Haddam.
Dhoom. Achale, Dhoom. Achale, Dhoom.
It's so
Achale,
good.
Dhoom, 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 Dhoom.
It's the earworm. It really is. Like it's such an earworm. And it was more so than in the other two movies, I feel like.
Yeah. No, the Dhoom 2 really got me because they do a big song at the beginning, I think.
Yeah, with Hrithik Roshan
yeah.
dancing around in the industrial warehouse.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We're not here to talk about Dhoom 2 though. We are here to talk about Dhoom 3, the supposedly final installment in the Dhoom series. The film came out in 2013, so let's assume 10 years on, we're not getting any more Dhoom films. But yeah, we're going to be talking about 2013's Dhoom 3. So the film is directed by Vijay Krishna Acharya, and it stars Abhishek Bachchan and Uday Chopra, as you would expect if you've seen the first two films. But it can't be forgotten that this film is essentially Amir Khan taking over the Dhoom franchise. It also stars Amir Khan and Katrina Kaif, along with an extended cameo from the always fantastic Jackie Shroff. Amir Khan plays, well, spoilers at the top here, this movie is 10 years old. He plays two roles in this movie. Sahir and Samar Khan, two brothers who take it upon themselves to get back at those dirty bankers in Chicago, of all places. And Abhishek Bachchan and Uday Chopra are back as Jai and Ali to take down the one and only Amir Khan, the most high-profile Indian circus act runner in Chicago.
I'm trying to do the faces that
oh my God,
Amar does.
Oh dear God in heaven. Couple things at the top before we talk about the movie. Amir Khan is playing a developmentally challenged character in this movie, which I think we just need to get out of the way at the top. And we're going to have to navigate talking about that as best we can. But they say the word retarded in the movie several times. Never really to his character, but they mention it. So it was kind of just at the top. If that's something that upsets you or you're not a fan of, just know that there is a character in this movie that is a serious character who is developmentally disabled.
Well, you know what was weird about it was that we say that because in the subtitles, it was written, a character would say, hey, he's retarded. And so that's a word that struck you and I as being pretty harsh and antiquated. Okay. But we don't know the actual translation. And I will say this, weirdly, I noticed a drop in the quality of the subtitling. I actually think the previous film had better subtitles. These seemed a little off for some reason in their phrasing and in the way they put ideas across, almost like whoever did these subtitles didn't have the facility with both languages that the person who did the first movie and the second movie did. So I would almost even say, I almost can't blame the movie for this. In the actual movie, they may have used a slightly more respectful phrase to describe that character.
I wouldn't be surprised given the character who says it, though, because the character who says it is Uday, the kind of looser of the two characters. But yeah, again, it's just it's a role that I don't know if Amir Khan would do now. Let's just put it that way.
Well, you know what they say in Tropic Thunder.
Right. You never go full. So.
And he didn't go full. He was like, I was watching that going, it took me a while. Well, and again, we're assuming you've seen the movie, so we're just kind of jumping into the discussion, but there were scenes where it was more pronounced than in other scenes.
Right.
So depending on the day they were filming, he was either really into it or he was tempering it a little bit. There were times when it seemed, but I was like, oh, whoa, okay. I've seen in my mind, I'm like, okay, his brother is a little slow.
Right.
That's how I was going to.
Right. And that's the movie way of doing it. He's slow. That's what 9 times out of 10, that's what you would say.
Right. Developmentally challenged. I like that. Mental disability. That's good too. But just as I was going, oh, I get it. That's what's going on here. then after that moment, there were scenes where it was so pronounced that that I was like, wow, okay, so they're making this isn't subtle. This is a drastic, separate character, which is fine. And by the way, I would like to add in by saying Amir Khan is great, and I loved both characters. I mean, I had tremendous affection for Samar, so I didn't find the performance insulting or off-putting. I was like, I get this. I get the kind of character he's playing, the kind of person he's playing, a little bit emotionally naive, big heart, none of the cynicism and sort of Machiavellian, tactician of Sahir. So I was happy in the company of either of these characters.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about. Tell me your thoughts sitting down to watch Amir Khan leading Doom 3, because for me, that's the thing that I think we really have to also get out in front of is it's an Amir Khan movie, and this is your first Amir Khan movie. Like the fact that Amir Khan, I don't like it. Like imagine if Fast and the Furious 1 and 2 just had who they had, and then in Fast and the Furious 4, The Rock showed up and took over the franchise. It's the same. It's almost identical because Amir Khan is the focus 100% of this movie.
Well, that was the interesting part is that that was also a facet in Doom 2.
Right.
The bad guy, it's the bad guy's story.
Right. I think it's more here though than it's ever been in the first two.
Well, you were complaining, or I don't know if you're complaining, remarking, observing that in Doom 2, Ali and Jai were almost beside the point.
Right.
And I was sort of like, no, I don't think so. I think that there was a lot going on. Ali had, his crush on the female lead or the female lead's sister. She played a double role. I'm like, I get that. There's something going on for our main characters. In this one, I had that feeling. They are almost not necessary. Nothing's really going on with them. They're just there to keep the investigation going so we can cut back to scenes of Amir Khan and Katrina Kaif as Aaliyah and track those relationships. There really didn't seem to be any other story going on for our two main guys, right?
Well, and that's the thing that this movie is kind of interesting. You've kind of already mentioned it. In the second movie, I totally thought that Abhishek and Uday Chopra were afterthoughts. Like you said, here, it's not even their movie. This really has a 100% different tone. It's a different kind of movie. It's asking different things of the audience in a way. It's not nearly as lighthearted. It's very serious in a lot of ways. Like there's moments of fun, but I don't think that this movie is nearly as kind of enjoyable to watch as the first two, because I think the first two are doing different things and expecting different things, and the audience at the time has different expectations. It's coming out in 2013. Right. Those movies are coming out 2004 and 2006 within 2 years of each other, and then you have a huge gap of time where the genre has changed so much. This movie is it should never have been called Doom. It would have been fun if they had cameoed in the movie as their characters, but to call it Doom is to tell you of an expectation that is never met.
Well, yeah, the storytelling is very elevated. The characters are larger than life. They're mythical. They're immortal. Their abilities are beyond. Yeah. I mean, it's like you're watching people do things that human beings can't do. So it's sort of in the old-fashioned James Bond kind of the guy's unkillable sort of world, which is fine. I mean, I think that's a hallmark of this series of films. I think that I agree with you. The enjoyment. This was a drama.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it as a drama, and Amir Khan is a great actor, and I was happy to watch, but it was not the same kind of experience as Doom 1 and Doom 2, which were clearly like, okay, we are high octane, crazy balls to the wall, over the top action. And every 10 minutes, there's either going to be, or every 5 minutes, either a giant musical sequence or a giant crazy action sequence that's going to take your breath away. This one, pace is different, tone is different. There are action sequences. There's a couple of musical sequences, but even those were not as present as they were in the first two.
Well, and that, Heather and I recently talked about the director's film that came after this one that features Amir Khan and Katrina Kaif, and Amir Khan's in a top hat in that movie, not a bowler cap. He's in a top hat, but he's playing a Jack Sparrow-esque character in a kind of period piece, high seas, British versus kind of the pirates it's called Thugs of Hindostan. It's actually a lot of fun. It's kind of what this movie should have been in a lot of ways, because this movie is just so different. And like you said, it's a drama. It's not an action movie. There's some action, but I don't think that's what the movie's concerning itself with, which is perfectly fine. But right. It sticks out like a sore thumb if you're calling it Doom 3.
Yeah, and it was also, I love the evolution, and I would never fault a sequel for trying to, take us into new territory, which this one did quite literally with Chicago. But every time, it's like every time Ali showed up, I sort of felt like, oh, right, he's in this movie.
Right. Well, so I watched, I was watching for when we meet Jai Dixit and Ali again in this movie, right?
Yeah.
30 minutes.
What?
Into this film. It takes 27 minutes and 30 seconds to meet the two of them. You have the intro scene with what you could not convince me that that's not just Amir Khan de-aged into a child. That actor is so convincing as child Amir Khan. You can't convince me that they just didn't go back in time and get Amir Khan as a child and have him do it and then put him back. He's so
That's
convincing.
That's why it took so long to make this movie. They had to build the time machine first. Right. Then production could begin.
Right? But you have not just one scene with Amir Khan's character giving him kind of his setup, but then you have a scene where he heists, which we see at the beginning of the last two movies. You have the heist scene, but we have the pre-heist scene, then the heist scene, then a soft shoe performance by Amir Khan, and then he's doing his best Michael Flatley. I was surprised he didn't sing. And then we finally get to the point where we're introduced to the characters from Doom that so many people theoretically are here for. That's the thing. This movie, if you were watching this movie, you went to see this movie because Amir Khan was in it.
Yeah, I guess so. And
no, that's not. That's totally what it is. Like 100%.
You would have to, to the degree that you can, educate me on what his sort of persona in films, like who is he the equivalent of Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt? Or
Tom Cruise is the equivalent of him. If there were 100 Tom Cruises, Amir Khan is like Shah Rukh Khan in that there is not really an American equivalent because we don't treat our actors that way in this country. People don't revere actors the way Amir Khan is revered. He is like, maybe Brad Pitt or George Clooney are close, but not really. Like the star power and the charisma and the cult of personality surrounding the bigger stars in Indian cinema, Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, people like them are such big stars that we don't really have an equivalent. And to call an equivalent in our film industry might be to diminish how big of a deal they are in their own industry.
I guess I get that. I guess my question almost is he considered an action star or a dramatic actor or everything?
Everything. He transcends everything. He most recently, the film that he was in was Lal Singh Chadha, which is produced by Paramount and maybe even involving Tom Hanks's hand in production. It is a Indian sanctioned Bollywood remake of Forrest Gump, and he is the lead character. Amir Khan plays the Forrest Gump character. Movie was not very successful. It kind of actually bombed big time, but that should give you an idea of his visibility within Indian cinema. If he's being cast in that role, that's kind of one of the quintessential American cinema roles of the last 30, 40 years.
Right. Well, what's interesting is that, again, you're talking about a character with a diminished mental capacity.
Uh-huh.
So
right.
This was sort of the audition. And it was like, hey, remember that one character I did in Doom 3? Okay, it'll be a version of that.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because a film that came out the next year after Doom 3, PK, which is another Amir Khan vehicle where he plays an alien that comes to Earth that then gets embroiled in the question of why doesn't God help me if I'm asking for God's help? An alien's journey of that question, because he doesn't even understand what God is. But in that movie, he's also playing kind of a innocent or simple character. So I mentioned like Amir Khan wouldn't take that role in 2023 as tongue in cheek because I had to mention the Forrest Gump film that he was literally in last year. So but it wasn't that successful though. It was kind of more or less critically panned, which is shocking because Amir Khan, for the most part, every time he does something, it's an event.
Yeah, I was going to say I loved his performance in both roles. Found him to be extremely charismatic, but did not. And he's in obviously great shape, but he didn't strike me as like, oh, and he's also a model. It's like he's a good looking guy, but he's a unique looking guy. Like there's elements to his face that make him like, oh, okay, he's not just a pretty face. It's like, all right, he's interesting,
right?
But so it's funny that he's like the level of stardom you're talking about maybe is achieved because he has a level of
verisimilitude,
but also versatility, so he can play different roles. And you're not just thinking, okay, but really, I'm just looking at a good-looking guy who works out a lot.
Oh, look, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger pretending to be somebody's dad. I never believed for a second that Arnold was actually that kid's dad in Jingle All the Way. Like, it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger and that family is whatever. Like, Amir Khan, he seamlessly invades a role and takes it over and becomes it in a believable way, even if it is kind of a little bit of a put on. I mean, I like that he's in this movie. Obviously, Hrithik Roshan in Dhoom 2, he's a huge star now. Hrithik Roshan was at the time then, but massive star now. There's rumors that he's going to be cast in the essentially the MCU equivalent in Indian cinema, the Astraverse. He's going to be cast as the big bad in that franchise. There's rumors that that's where his career is right now, but I mean, that's a big deal for someone like him being cast opposite effectively Iron Man, Captain America in their Marvel movie as the first big villain. Pretty high visibility for him as an actor. Amir Khan in a lot of ways didn't need this movie. This movie, and I'm not sure that this movie needed Amir Khan, is kind of what I'm driving at. Like Hrithik Roshan was so good in the last movie. I didn't need someone of Shah Rukh Khan's level to be in a Doom movie for it to be good. Shah Rukh Khan is just like Amir Khan. He's just in that same breath. You mentioned Salman Khan, Amir Khan, Shah Rukh Khan. They're the pinnacle of the Khans of Indian cinema. I don't think that this movie needed someone of his caliber in this movie. And I don't think he needed it. And I know the movie didn't need it because we enjoyed those first two movies a whole hell of a lot without someone of the god tier caliber of actor.
Well, I wonder how movies get made. I mean, I've got to assume it's like movies here. Like, I don't even know if Doom 3, like, I don't know what's driving it. Like, for an American studio, it would be like if it's successful, then we're making them every 2 years.
Right. Milk that cow until it's dead.
Exactly. And the fact that it went so long makes me wonder if it wasn't a matter of the actor saying, "Hey, I'd do one of those." And then they're like, "Oh, you would? Oh, well, okay, then you'll be the reason we'll do another one."
Yeah, I haven't gotten, again, I feel like when you're someone like Amir Khan, it's like they approach him with ideas for things to be in. But again, like, I don't know that for a fact. Again, when you're at the caliber that he's at, it feels more like a big deal to get him that he's involved. That level of star power is hard to, I mean, again, like when someone is in a movie in our country of that attempt at star caliber or power, it's a big deal. Like a Tom Cruise movie is a big deal, right?
Well, is he also a director and a producer like some of these guys?
He's also he's a director, producer. He's also a humanitarian. He also is and I'm not even joking, he is essentially like one of the non-official dignitaries between India and China because he has such a massive following in China. He's like, wow, the biggest Indian actor and one of the biggest actors in China, and he's Indian.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right.
Like I'm saying, like there are not a lot of there's not a comparison because actors in our country just don't have I don't think they have the influence the way actors in India do.
So really, he's more like he's the Jackie Chan of India.
I think he's like the Amir Khan of India. Like, that's the problem. Like, really, like, I don't know. There's no one to compare him to. If you watch more, when we
Jackie
watch
Chan
more
has that
movies,
sort of
sure.
elevated sort of, he does action, he does comedy, he does drama, and he writes and he directs and he stars and he's a one-man studio.
Yeah, I see. Okay, if you were talking about, I see what you're getting at. Sure, but again, like, what's funny is you've got in Hong Kong cinema, it's like Jackie Chan is kind of the top, and he shares it by himself in a lot of ways. In Indian cinema, like, there are several people that are like Amir Khan of that same level, and then there are people that are just right beneath them, even like Ranbir Kapoor or Prabhas. I mean, even actors that aren't necessarily Hindi, they're Telugu or Tamil. Like, again, it's hard to really draw a line from Indian cinema, the way we treat our actors, to the way they treat their actors. It's just hard to compare it. And it's unfair. It's unfair to compare them to our actors because, again, like, I just think there's a different expectation with what they're expecting when you go to the theaters. It's still an experience and a thing to go to the movies in India. You're getting an entire day's worth of entertainment. There's an intermission. Right. It's 3 hours. Like, it's not just going to the movies like it is here. Right. Like, you have to be an active audience to enjoy these movies, I feel like. And the movie wants you to be actively involved. It's not just, put it on in the background and fuck around on your phone.
Yeah. Well, and this was the longest of the three.
Boy, wasn't it?
Yeah. And because it also within the film itself, the pacing was a little more relaxed. I mean, the first two were just shots of adrenaline constantly, coursing through. So that's fine. I would even say the second one more than the first. So the fact that this was a very exciting, dramatic, visually beautiful movie, it was weird to say, this feels a little slow.
It did feel slow, but again, I think it's because the movie's not concerning itself with being an action movie. Like, it's not even concerning itself with getting to the action set pieces. It's concerning itself with telling the story of Amir Khan and his brother, how did you feel about the twist? Because it's not that I think that kind of, I think, do you think the movie plays fair with the twist is my question? Because I always wonder that with movies playing fair with the twist, because it's a pretty big twist. It changes the makeup of the movie drastically.
It totally changes it. I do this all the time because of who I am. When a big story twist happens, I always pause to find out exactly where we are in the movie. Typically, you're halfway through. This was almost to the second. Like, I stopped it, and it was like an hour and 35 minutes have run, and we've got an hour and 35 minutes to go.
Right. It would have been the intermission point. You would have had like the intermission. You would have had him and like seen that and the flashback and then intermission, and then you come back and they're talking to each other, and it's like, that's how you send people to the fucking lobby to get their snacks, is with like, oh my God, like,
right. Now we're coming back for the other movie. It's a whole different ball game, which is, look, I liked it. What I found a little less compelling were, when they went back and were kind of recapping moments, I was sort of like, well, you're not really showing us moments where I, as an audience, was like, whoa, wait a second, that's impossible.
Right.
Because the movie sets the bar of possibility so high that I wasn't really questioning these things, that they felt they had to go back and go, haha, here's how we did it. There was a moment early on when it was clear that the main character, Sahir, was part of the Great Indian Circus and knew how to do magic and acrobatics, that I thought, oh, if the earlier movies were sort of a salute to Fast and the Furious, this is going to crib from Now You See Me.
I guess that's what I kept thinking of when I watched.
I'm like, this is going to be about magic. This is going to I thought, oh, that truck that he's in that explodes and he comes out on a motorcycle. I thought what's really going to happen is one of the panels is going to fall down and it's empty. And it's going to be like, oh, that's exactly like the trick we saw. So we're going to see various versions of quote unquote magic tricks. He's going to rob a bank, get locked in the vault, the impregnable vault. He'll get locked in. And then when they open it, he's gone. And everything's going to turn on the notion of he's using magic and illusion. Well, they explain this by, he is doing that because there's two of them, so he can be in two places at once. But they never there wasn't enough of that in the first half of the movie to make it feel like there was an explanation. It was a reveal. It's like, oh, well, that certainly makes things easier. There's two people. Okay, so just two brains you can apply to this and two physical bodies to misdirect the police, I guess. But it's not like, I mean, again, in those early chase scenes, it wasn't like, hey, he's going down, he's turning a corner, into a dead end, and then they all follow him and he's gone.
Right.
And now he's behind us, and it's like, wait a second. And in other words, using that as an explanation for things we saw earlier, I did not find effective, but that's fine. They quickly got into an emotional story that had to do with, with this young woman, Aaliyah, who comes to audition, who apparently was not allowed to audition. Get out of here, you crazy person. And then she comes out and is like the greatest pop star and dancer who never lived on the planet Earth. Oh, I suppose I should have given you 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh, but when she lost the overalls, that's when they knew. That's when she didn't have overalls on anymore. That's why
it's kind of insulting. It's like she shows up for some reason in overalls, a giant hat, 4 spare pieces of clothing no one needs, and then her big dance audition turns into a striptease. It's like, well, okay, you've got the part. Because just as I was about to look away, you took off some more clothes.
Well, and that's why I say the movie's not playing fair, because in that scene it's trying to be like, oh no, like this is some secret person. It's like, come on, movie. Like you said, with all of those scenes, we've seen Doom 1 and Doom 2. So I know what these franchise set pieces are capable of, how wild they can get. I mean, in the first movie, you have like all kinds of insane motorcycle shit, people doing tricks on motorcycles. Second movie, the movie opens with a guy robbing a train. Come on. So why would I think that a guy driving a motorcycle out of a parking garage is somehow only his brother could have done it? Like you said, it wasn't playing fair. It just wasn't, because my expectations, the movie knows what my expectations are, because I've seen the first two, and it didn't play fair. And I don't think the twist could have landed a hell of a lot better if they had kind of given you a little bit of a setup, just a little bit, seeding doubt somehow, because then it gives them the opportunity to do something interesting with those set pieces, because the set pieces are rather pedestrian, like in a lot of ways. And in some ways, they just kind of go on for too long and rely too much on slow-mo than anything else, especially the chase scene where he's chased on the skidoo. I guess it's the same scene where he's chased on the skidoo. The motorcycle turns into a skidoo, and then he's on the river. It's like, there's nothing interesting happening. They're just chasing after.
Yeah. Like I never believed that individual needed a second person to pull this off.
Right, at all. There's nothing here that's like, it's more unrealistic that his like motorcycle can turn into a skidoo. That was like, that's more unrealistic that he has a brother. Like, all right. You just didn't show us who was behind the camera, essentially, most of the time. Like, his brother's like standing off to the side half the time is what it feels like.
And there've been big reveals. In Doom 2, the big reveal was that the woman working with the bad guy is actually working for Jai.
Right.
And she's a plant. Okay, well, who is she really going to be loyal to? That's great. I mean, that gets you through the second half of the movie. There was a point about halfway through where I was like, wait a second, there's going to be a big reveal. I just don't know what it is, but there's something's going to happen that's going to change the rules, because the movie's too long.
Yeah.
For it to only be about this for another, hour and 20 minutes. And then as I was thinking that, it's the bullet wound isn't there. And then the reveal, and it's like, oh, okay, got it. Okay. So now this is what'll get us through the second half. And again, I was perfectly happy, enjoyed it. I identified with both characters. I didn't sit back and go, oh, well, this is lame. No way. And I hate this character and who cares? I was into it. I mean, that's the other thing, is that, when the dust settles, it's still great, fun filmmaking.
Well, and I think the second half of the movie also is more of a return to Doom in a way. Like the first half of the movie is Amir Khan's kind of, you're with him most of it. Like you check back in with Jai and Ali from time to time, but the second half of the movie, they're more present, because Abhishek Bachchan is striking up this friendship with Samar, and they're having this whole thing at Six Flags, which we kind of, because we kind of have not really mentioned it. This movie takes place in Chicago, and then the Field Museum is the setting for the Great Indian Circus.
Oh, is that it? Because I'm totally unfamiliar with
Yeah, I
Chicago
believe
outside of
so.
television, outside of Kolchak and the Bob Newhart show. I really don't know Chicago.
But the field, I believe it's the Field Museum that's used as the Great Indian Circus. It cracks me up that there are banks in Chicago that are being robbed, and the thief is leaving messages in Hindi,
Right.
and then and this like clown mask. It's like there's a Great Indian Circus on the waterfront, like with a guy who is like they see him robbing the bank too, because at the way he opens the kind of the present day is him robbing the bank in Chicago and ziplining down the side of the building with no mask on, no nothing.
Right.
It's like, I feel like this could be solved in 5 minutes. Jai Dixit just be like, all right, it's the guy at the circus, and there you go. Just go, the one Indian circus guy in all of Chicago. Go lock that guy up.
Well, you run into a problem because you've got two competing pillars of your premise. The first one being these are circus performers,
right?
Okay, so they have a public profile. They're performing in front of hundreds of people every night. Even though this is new, I think the first robbery took place before he reopened the circus,
right?
But still, and then the fact that you don't cover your face during the robbery is important to pull off you thought it was one guy, but it was really identical twins. If he covered his face, it'd be very hard to sort of get excited about the fact that, oh my God, so the person we were seeing was two people.
It's a contrivance for a contrivance's sake. It didn't need to be that contrived.
I guarantee the director was like, this isn't ideal.
Right. All these CGI shots of Amir Khan's face being like transposed onto the actor actually riding the motorcycle. It's like you could have done without those by like just having him wear a mask and it wouldn't have mattered.
Right, exactly. And that was the other thing. I will say that I found it very impressive. When Amir Khan was, in a scene twice,
oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, it was very well done. Probably the best I've ever seen where you're watching one actor playing two roles, interacting with themselves, physically interacting. It was very impressive.
Yeah, I know that, that is the thing about the second half of the movie, that it really had to land that interactions, right, of Samir and Sahir, because Amir Khan is just, it's him and it's him. Like you're nobody else to lean on. And that, I think, you want to talk about an actor being given a vehicle for him to be the star, right? That's one thing. But asking an actor to be the driver of the vehicle twice is just like even more impressive. And I'm with you. Like, if anything, Amir Khan's dual performance is like the best dual performance I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's shockingly good. It doesn't deserve to be in this movie. Like, in a lot of ways, it deserves to be its own thing.
Well, and it's weird because, again, we're seeing this. I'm seeing an actor I have never seen before.
Which is crazy to me.
Right. And in India, it's as if you're going to see a Tom Cruise movie. You're seeing someone who you've seen before and you already have a feeling.
Since you were like a kid type thing. Like, since like Amir Khan's someone who like you would have been watching his movies as like a kid. Like I would have been. Like, the latest Amir Khan movie's coming out. Like, okay. Right. Yeah.
Right. And then to see him playing two roles, and these specific two roles, were people like, oh, I don't like to see him like that. Clearly not. Clearly he's enough of an actor that it's like, oh no, we are, like I was, charmed and, we're emotionally into the simple brother, Samar. And, but you don't, like, I brought no baggage with me. I was just like, here's a guy, he's cool and extremely, smart and, 4 chess moves ahead of everybody. And now he's also, but now he's sort of the fun, simple brother. What was funny about it was in the first half of the movie, when he came in and said, I know who the guy is. And it's the
closed mouth Charlie.
Yeah. Closed mouth Charlie. I'm sort of like, I don't know if this is like, why is this? Like, it's interesting when the bad guy comes in and interacts with, our star, but I'm like, what's the point of this exactly? I'm not sure I'm getting it. And I'm going to insert myself into the investigation so I will be able to track it and also take suspicion off myself. Okay, good enough. But boy, it seemed a little strange. He was taking a lot of chances. This did not seem like a bad guy who was tremendously dedicated to pulling off his crime.
Until he
it seemed a little
was,
sloppy.
until he was, and then he was just willing to kill Abhishek Bachchan by having him run over by a roller coaster.
That's the other thing.
It's so strange. Like the character of Sahir is almost written in a way that like he's tonally inconsistent in a way Samar isn't.
Yeah. Well, that was the strange thing. It's like at the end, Sahir approaches Jai and he's like, look, lock me up, but let my brother go. And Jai's like, the last time I saw you, you were in the process of murdering me.
Literally gonna get smushed out of existence by a roller coaster.
But okay, things happen. Water under the bridge, water under the roller coaster.
Right.
So it's like what? Yeah. So there were moments of like, there's some internal inconsistencies here. It's entertaining. I'm enjoying myself, but I am not super taking this seriously.
And that I think is like the overarching issue that I have with this movie is it wants to be so serious, but at the same time have fun in a way that Doom 1 and Doom 2 did. And you can't have fun that way with this tone and this kind of, I mean, look, Jackie Schroff is in this movie, fantastic actor. He's in this movie for like 10 minutes, kills himself in the first 10 minutes of the movie in front of his son, in front of both of his sons, frankly. We find out later. Like this movie, like you set the tone in a really strange way, and then you want to have fun with it, but you had our main character's father killing himself in the first 5 minutes. Like what tone are you setting?
Well, I remember in Doom 2, do you remember the whole Russian roulette sequence?
Oh,
with the girl?
Yeah.
And I remember us talking about that and going, okay, everything was cool. And then there was this super fucking dark, psychotic Russian roulette scene.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's over.
It's like whacked out with Rashik Roshan being like, I'm going to fucking kill you and pull the trigger. It's like, I like you. Don't do this, please.
Yeah. It was like super dark. And it stood out because tonally it was different than everything else. And so this movie had a little bit of that too. And it's weird. I'm trying to figure it out because look, many of these Bollywood films are multi-tonal.
Right. Masala films, as they would be called.
Okay. They're comedies, they're dramas, they're melodramas, thriller, action, musical, everything. Far more than an American film. Got it. So it is funny when you do find tonal inconsistencies within them because each one of them does declare its little corner of the cinematic world. Even if there's a lot of different flavors, you do expect certain things. There are borders.
Right.
And I think Doom 2 crossed it with that one scene. And then Doom 3 crosses it with again, literally trying to murder Jai, which seemed kind of out of nowhere. It's like, well, what is your big problem? Like, you don't really hate this guy. This movie isn't about the two of you. It's about you and the bank. You hate the bank.
Which in and of itself is kind of a problem, frankly. Again, it takes all of the emotional weight of the movie out of the actual, like, the conflict is secondary. The actual conflict of the movie feels secondary to the plot.
Why not just kill the white actor?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson. Why not just have him be, whatever?
Yes, an actor totally unknown in America.
Like what? Well, I don't like. Again, like that's why I asked the thing about Chicago. Like, why was this set in Chicago? It feels so strange that it's set in Chicago. It's just like there's some things strange.
But it was filmed in Chicago, right?
Yeah, it looked like almost all of it. See, like the things that I don't think that they were doing anything to make a fake Chicago, but there is some of it that was shot in like Switzerland and other places because that dam at the end is not anywhere near Chicago. That was in Switzerland.
Oh, right. Okay.
The dam that comes out of nowhere that clearly does not look like Illinois in any form or fashion.
Yeah, that's true. There's always a dam.
The climactic dam scene in this movie.
It's funny, not to make everything about me, but why not? But we did. There's a lot of there's a big scene on a dam in Titans season 4.
Oh yeah.
So I spent some time on a dam And so when we went to this dam, I was like, damn.
Is it just a rule in writing that if you have the characters at a dam, one of them has to go over the dam? It's just Richard Haddam's rules of going over the dam. If there is a dam, someone will go over it.
Well, not in Titan.
Oh, that's
It's
surprising
just-
in and of itself.
Just a location. So, yeah.
But somebody goes over the dam in this. And
Yeah.
another tonally inconsistent scene. Oh, I think the movie ends on its most tonally inconsistent note and left a really bad taste in my mouth going out of the viewing experience. Not because I was like, oh my God, they're dead. I'm so sad. It's just like, movie, why? Like, hey, what was the point then?
Right. Well, again, it's sort of like, well, I guess you're just doing your own movie within a movie about these two brothers who had a tragic upbringing, did something together, and then their story concludes. But and the way it's filmed is so heightened. They're kind of just floating down into the abyss together, smiling at each other and at their spiritual future. It was very strange. But again, because it's a Doom movie, I'm like, are we going to fade to black and then fade up, and then we're going to see them at some cafe on the other side of the world, like we did in Doom 2, and realize, it was all an illusion.
That's what I was thinking. No, it's like, and the bankers are, they're out of business. The end. Like, we didn't care, right? And like, that was not something anyone cared about.
How does a bank go out? Well, they stole all the cash, so we had to close our doors. It's like, bank doesn't really go out of business because it got robbed 3 times.
I think my favorite kind of weird anachronism that this movie has is at one point there's a newspaper stand that the characters like drive a motorcycle through. Like, that's not a thing. Maybe it's like thinking like what people think of like big American cities, but there's not like a newspaper stand that says like ye old news time on it.
Well, there is. I mean, I think to Indian audiences, there has to be a cinematic knowledge of Chicago.
Right.
So if we had seen a boy, in a cap and, short pants and a sweater vest, going extra, read all about it.
I mean, we're on Lower Wacker enough, for fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. It feels like most of the set pieces take place on Lower Wacker, which, look, I know why they're there. You know why they're there. It's because The Dark Knight did such a good job filming down there that everybody wants to run a scene down in Lower Wacker with a motorcycle or a car or something. And I get it, but setting this movie in Chicago doesn't add anything to the overall flavor of the movie, I don't think.
I mean, again, unless for a native audience, they're like, oh, this is great. We're tired of seeing Mumbai. This is cool. Let's go see our actors in a different city, in an American city. Awesome. Well, but that's the other thing is they didn't do a lot of the, it's Jai and Ali in Chicago.
It would have been if it had been their movie.
Well, yeah, like we're not suddenly seeing them at at a Cubs game.
I would have liked to have seen that though. But only if Jai was in his like hilarious disguise that totally didn't disguise him at all, just made him look like him with facial hair. I have a secret to tell you. She's like, dude, we know, everybody knows it's you.
But except for the simple brother.
Right. But he's not the simple brother. Plot twist, he replaced the simple brother off screen in things that we never saw happen. Okay, to the point where I watched the end of the movie 3 times to figure out if I had missed something. No, the movie just didn't show us those scenes from the perspective of the characters. It showed us the scene from the perspective of the character who replaced the character. And it's like, wait a second, movie, that's playing unfair now within playing unfair.
Right. Well, the other thing was, Jai meets up with Samar.
Right.
And takes off his beard and is trying to convince him to stop, right?
He's like, come with me to the police. We like turn yourself in. I'll help you. I understand that like it would look to me like maybe your brother's taking advantage of you. You're not really the one pushing this. Like you are, again, you're simple. So you're suggestionable, I guess, is what the movie's logic is.
Right. It's like you're not as committed to this as he is.
He's the ringleader.
Basically offering the same deal that Sahir asks for on the dam at the end of the movie.
Right.
arrest me, let him go. Instead, he reveals himself and seems even angrier.
That's when he straps him to the roller. Yeah.
And then tries to murder a cop. It's like, well, why not just take the deal then? Why not just go, okay, you know what? You're okay. You thought I was the slow one and you offered me a deal. So how about this? Same deal. I'm going to get out of here, but don't blame my brother because he's out of this.
I guess it's the proximity to that they wanted to have the heist done. Because remember, they end up robbing the bank in between. And that's all it is. It's so that it could be like, well, now my job is done and, now I can go to prison. It's like, really?
The weird part is, correct me if I'm wrong, they're robbing the same physical bank.
Over and over again. I think they are taking all of the money, Richard. I think that is actually what's going on here. Which again, it's like, I don't want to say it sounds kind of like a dopey way of telling this story, but like that's not how this works in India. And that's not how it works in the United States, because that's not how banks work, period. Not here, not there, not anywhere. Like,
yeah, it's not like there's 3 piles of money. Oh, they got the first one. Oh, they got the second one. They'd better not get that third one. They do.
Right.
Well, guys, they turn the sign around on the door of the bank. Closed, out of money.
Money all gone.
Money gone.
Like, again, if it's a movie that's more heightened than this one is, to have it be one of the heists, sure, but it being the singular focus of our main character to shut down a bank that caused his father to kill himself is so just kind of one-dimensional. Like, it's just kind of, I don't want to say babyish, but it's not a heightened way or even a complex way or a mature way of telling this kind of story.
Well, I think the satisfying ending for this movie would have, in a weird way, would have been for Samar and Aaliyah to be together and for Sahir to go to prison.
Right.
And we just sort of go, you know what, you're the bad one. You were taking advantage of your brother. He was not really essential to anything you were doing. It felt like you were just coming up with things that he could do to make him feel involved. But
Brendan Dassey is in prison because of supposedly Stephen Avery telling him to do things for him. Similar thing, right? Like the guy who doesn't know any better is just roped in because he doesn't know any better.
Right. But emotionally, we would go, oh, okay. Sahir was a good brother who avenged daddy's death, but also allowed his brother, who he loved, to go have a life, and he will pay for those crimes. And if that's how the movie had ended, you'd be like, great, thank you. For both of them to decide, no, it's actually probably better if we just die, seems weird and a little disappointing.
A lot disappointing. It just, by the end of the movie, that's why I was like, oh, that was it. Like, the fact that the movie ended the way that it did, and then it's like, okay, so we fade to black. They've jumped off this dam. They go into the abyss together. Like, I was expecting, like you said, that cuts back and there they are, sitting on the beach or whatever, and like, hey, we got them.
We've pulled off one last illusion.
Nope, it cuts back to characters that we don't care about getting their comeuppance, which is so unrealistic in the way that it happens that you're just like rolling your eyes because again, it doesn't work that way. And then we have a conclusion to the Katrina Kaif story that, again, she's only been in this movie. She's not the biggest kind of complaint maybe that could be leveled against movies. Katrina Kaif is essentially wasted, given nothing. Of the characters who are given something to do that are introduced in this movie, she's given the least out of anyone to do. And then her story ends up being the final note of the film, and it feels so unearned that I was just, it was like at the end of the newest Star Wars movie where Rey's like, I'm a Skywalker. It's like, the fuck you are. Like, no, I don't even have an issue with those movies. It's just, you didn't earn that shit. It was like at the end of Indiana Jones 4 where Shia LaBeouf's about to put the hat on. It's like, you better not, because you have not earned, you, the narrative haven't earned that. So don't try to give yourself a pat on the back by getting that conclusion over on the audience.
Right. Well, okay. So yeah, I guess that was the conclusion of her story. I guess our guys go back to India. Oh, by the way, who was the blonde cop, Victoria?
Another woman for Ali to to lust after and go
Right.
nowhere like in the last two movies.
But it didn't even get like it wasn't. I mean, even he didn't seem particularly devoted to the notion of really being with this woman. She was just sort of there. For a minute, it felt like, okay, she's going to be the or a female lead,
Right.
that is going to become involved with Jai or Ali, or she's going to have an interesting backstory that has to get resolved in some way based on this case. But then really, it's just like, nope, she's only going to be in about 3 more scenes, and 2 of them she ain't even going to talk. And
Well,
it's like, oh, okay, well, there you go.
Well, and it for me, I think just goes back to this idea that the movie it seems like it sidelines the Doom parts of the movie. Like her and Ali would have had a back and forth like in 2 where he's, kind of being crass. And there is a little bit of it, but it's just, you do see that kind of from the second and first movie where he would like visualize him, hanging out with them or spending time with these women in these kind of like dream scenarios while he's talking to them. They do a little bit of it in this movie, but they almost forget it immediately for Amir Khan's story, because again, like the Doom parts of this movie are not what this movie's interested in telling. It's a movie within a movie. Doom just happens to be the frame that the picture is sitting in of the Amir Khan movie.
Doesn't it also seem weird? Like, I don't, and again, my ignorance of Indian filmmaking and its relationship to American filmmaking. But when you think about it, wasn't this an opportunity to get an American actor or actress to co-star in one of the biggest franchises in India? Like, you could have gotten someone of some stature in America to play a character in this movie that would have made it feel like, oh, this is a true, like, there's a reason for an American audience to watch it. There's, obvious reasons for an international and an Indian audience to watch it. But that never seems to happen. And again, I always look at it from our point of view, where I watch these movies and I'm like, that person's great. That person's great. That person's great. Why doesn't, Universal or Paramount or Warner Brothers go get that actor and make them one of the Avengers, and bring them and put them in an American franchise and make them a team member on, Mission Impossible or something. And I guess that's happened a little. There are a few, Indian celebrities that have become famous in American productions, but it feels like there should be more.
I mean, let me put it this way. If I were as big a deal in my home country as I were, would I go work anywhere else?
Well, I mean, I guess that's it. I guess but when you're
there,
famous,
they have more people in India than we ever will who will go see movies, right? Like,
but don't you want to kind of be famous everywhere? I mean,
it depends on the person. Do you want to do one thing really well, or do you want to do several things okay?
Because these actors are so talented and multi-talented. And I get that America as a geographical spot on the globe isn't huge, but our profile in world filmmaking is so huge. It feels almost irresistible that one of these major stars would go, okay, I've dominated this. Now I want to go work with Scorsese, or something, or I want to go, make a Marvel movie. And that, I mean, am I crazy? It doesn't feel like that's happened.
No, and one of the leads from Triple R recently was talking about how he was like, hey, I would love to be in a Marvel movie. And Kevin Feige, like, you should be like pushing harder for this. And I don't disagree, but at the same time, like, I don't want anyone to think I'm like an India file or anything. But I think that I think that in a lot of ways, American cinema is just not that interesting, and the audience is just not. If I'm sitting in Amir Khan's position and I am a massive star in India and China, 2 countries that are geographically on top of one another, what's the point of going to America, an untapped market of how many people that I'm going to have to work really hard to appeal to?
Well, you know what it is? It's like if I were, Michael Wilson or Barbara Broccoli, I would go, Amir Khan, he's going to be the next bad guy in the next Bond movie.
Right, exactly. 100%.
Right.
You're completely right. That for me is what I think you're totally right about with the casting in this movie specifically. That was an opportunity. But you'll see if you watch something like Triple R, the main villain in that movie is Ray Stevenson. Yeah, Ray Stevenson, the actor who played the Punisher in the Punisher Warzone movie. He was in Dexter. He's been in all kinds of stuff, like a pretty high profile British actor.
Okay.
But like you said, casting someone who's more well-known, leads to, I guess, more visibility, I would think. So why not take that opportunity? Right. But at the same time, do you really want to cast someone opposite your actor that may overshadow your actor?
Well, I don't know, because I mean, look, the Bond movies cast charismatic bad guys.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be afraid.
The expectation.
Christopher Walken, David Bowie, Benicio del Toro, Mads Mikkelsen. I mean, they're not, Christoph Waltz. They're not afraid of letting that be big.
Right.
They don't really, in Bond films, they don't let the director be big. Like, you can't, like, there's a rule, like, there's a reason Spielberg, who has said he would love to do a Bond movie, has never been allowed to do a Bond movie, because no one can be bigger than Bond in the production. So you can't have a direct, you can't go to a Bond movie and go to it thinking you're seeing a Steven Spielberg movie.
Right.
It's got to be a Bond movie.
Right.
Which is fine. I get all that, but that's not the rule when it comes to talent. Like, you can go and get international talent. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. We're talking.
I'm with you 100%. Like, I wish that Indian actors like Amir Khan had a bigger presence for Western audiences of non-Indian transplants living here, because he has the acting talent that people like yourself and like myself would resonate with, because we did with this movie, and he's not speaking English.
Because it goes both ways, by the way. I think it worked. I think there was, a lot of people who didn't know who Jackie Chan was. And then Jackie Chan did Rush Hour. And then Americans were like, hey, there's this guy named Jackie Chan, and he's got a bunch of other movies. And then they went and saw the 30 Hong Kong movies he'd done, or some of them did. It's a way to raise. See, here's what I'm getting at. And because it goes both ways.
Right.
Because of you, I watched my very first Bollywood movie. And then since then, I've probably seen a dozen of them. I know there's hundreds more, and I'll see many of them because of this show. And it makes me feel like, well, these are movies that any American can sit down and enjoy. Yeah, they're subtitled. Okay. But beyond that, you're getting a story, you're getting action and romance and entertainment. It's not some impenetrable cultural brick wall you're trying to claw your way through to even understand what this culture is thinking. You're watching a movie. And I feel like I want to tell everybody I know, hey, don't be afraid of the subtitles. Go watch Dhoom 1 and 2 and maybe 3 and enjoy it. And I think that would happen more readily if people were like, oh, that guy from the Bond movie, he was awesome, or that guy from the whatever, like, because Amir Khan and, Owen Wilson did a Western comedy together, like Shanghai Noon. Great. I want to see more of that guy. And then it would be a way for American audiences to then go, I know what that flavor is. Now I can go watch some Bollywood movies and then enjoy those in a way that so few do.
There it is, Richard. There it is. There is the thing that our friendship has been leading to, is that's the movie. I mean, theoretically, it hasn't happened yet. Nobody's done it. And I'm telling you, in the next 10 years, this will not be the conversation we will be having.
Right.
We will be having the conversation of like, Amir Khan is a big deal in the States now, or Shah Rukh Khan, or it more than likely will be Ranbir Kapoor, who's the lead in Brahmastra, which is their kind of MCU attempt. And they've even had Kevin Feige. They've talked to Kevin Feige, and he like brought them over to the States and was like, I feel like we as Westerners have been skimping on getting involved in the cinema of other countries, and now there's no excuse because this is on fucking Prime Video.
Well, not only that, but it's clear that these actors are fluent in English,
right?
And there's no language mountain range to be crossed. They can step into an English language film and have no problem. So it's not even that. So I hope you're right. And in 10 years, when we are having this conversation, which we absolutely will be, because we'll be doing our 10,000th podcast together, we can mark this day as the day when we said it's going to happen.
I agree. I think Triple R is a very good way for a lot of people to get an early look what the kind of Indian cinema is that more people in this country are going to resonate with. And it's stuff like Dhoom, but it's even more bombast and it's even more heightened and over the top and unlike anything you will see when you watch a Western action movie. And I think that now we as Westerners have begun become a little jaded with our own action movies and kind of just the sameness of them. And seeing something like Triple R on Netflix, like Doom 3 is on Prime Video, it's easily accessible, has subtitles, and even in the case of some of these movies, if they're big enough, English dub. Not advocating for it, but if that's what it fucking takes, it's what it takes.
Well, and I think it is time, if it comes with a tonal shift in large American action films that does go a little bigger, but at the same time does not take itself so seriously, that's good too. These movies, even this one, there was probably, of the Doom movies, the one that took itself the most seriously. It still did not take itself super seriously.
No, and not at all. And I'm with you. I mean, I think the time of the Christopher Nolanization of action movies, I think we're finally seemingly on the other side of it. Finally, hopefully. But things like this existed during that time. It was just they weren't being influenced by Chris Nolan the way we were. You know,
right.
Why our Western action movies essentially all became these gritty, serious, devoid of fun, to the point where James Bond, the one thing that should have always been fun, wasn't even fun.
No. Yeah, it's like Mission Impossible has sort of drifted back a little bit into, hiring Simon Pegg to play a role.
Right.
And in a certain way trying to embrace a level of humor and allow a level of over the top exuberance that where the audience is welcome to not just sit in, and be beaten down by the size of a action sequence, but to actually be lifted and feel a sort of sense of giddy weightlessness, which you used to get from movies like the 1980s Roger Moore James Bond movies and the Indiana Jones movies, the early, the first couple, where you're allowed to feel joy and not just, wow, I have just been beaten into submission by $100 million of CGI.
Right. And I'm completely with you. Dustin on the Bahubali episode put it better than I ever could, which is Indian cinema seems to leave some room for the joy of filmmaking to still exist. And that's the truth. Like, it feels like with American cinema, the joy of filmmaking is not allowed to exist inside of the movies anymore. Maybe not entirely the case, but in small cases that may still be the case. Someone like Jordan Peele, someone like Scorsese, maybe, but even then it's like how much room do you leave for the joy of filmmaking to come through, for you to really let the audience know that they're allowed to have a good time and enjoy themselves. And it feels like now we're not allowed to feel good about the things we watch anymore, or like, oh, it's a guilty pleasure. It's like, why? You should enjoy something you're watching. Jesus Christ. If you don't enjoy what you're watching, stop watching shit for real. Yeah. Like, you're watching the wrong things.
No such thing as a guilty pleasure, just pleasure.
Yeah, please. Because like if you're not consuming art because you want to, then you should go do something else, seriously, because there's plenty of other things you can do other than watch movies. So, Richard, final thoughts on Doom 3, the conclusion of a trilogy of films.
Definitely worth seeing for Amir Khan. Little sad that my old buddies Jai and Ali didn't have more to do. But also a worthy conclusion. It did not leave me desperate for a fourth. I think that all of these performers have bigger and better things that they went on to and are still going to go do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if you've watched Doom 1 and Doom 2, do yourself a favor and watch the third one. I have close friends who I've talked to about this movie and have told me that this is their favorite one. So again,
if it is, it's because of Amir Khan. It's just you love that guy, and I buy that.
Right.
I would not argue that for a second.
Right, and I totally get why. If you like the third one, you're probably more than likely also a fan of Amir Khan. Those two things don't necessarily need to be the case, but if you're a fan of Amir Khan, you're probably going to love this Doom movie because this is the only one that he's in. However, I think like yourself, I think I don't need a fourth one. Not even sure I needed a third one, frankly. But I wish there had been more of the things I wanted and got in the first two movies. But ultimately, the story that they told, I think, was still a worthwhile story to be told, even if in the end the landing is not necessarily stuck very well. Because sending the audience out on such a low note is a choice, and I applaud them for going for it because it's not a choice I would have gone for. But hey, send the audience out however you want, but that's one way to do it, I guess. So
agreed.
Yeah. So until the next time you and I talk about Bollywood cinema or movies in general, where can people find you, Richard?
They can find me on Titans on HBO Max. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 are available in their entirety. And the first half of season 4 has premiered, so you can watch that too. The final 6 episodes of season 4, I believe, are going to air or become available on HBO Max in April, although I don't have an exact date, so stay tuned.
And as for this show, BollywoodCinemaClub.com, but WeirdingWayMedia.com is where you can go to find this show and so many other shows, including Mike White's The Projection Booth, Father Malone's Astounding Tales of the Public Domain, and Richard's wife's show, 80s TV Ladies, where she talks about, with her co-host Sharon, all about TV shows from the 80s that feature ladies. Weird. That it's on brand. It's straight to the point. You know exactly what it is. 80s TV Ladies.
Right. And her name is Susan Lambert. I had to say her name or it's just going to be, oh, I'm your wife. Is that who I am now? I'm just your wife.
Woof. You're getting it from both angles, as they would say. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while. And yeah, as for this show, BollywoodCinemaClub.com, like, rate, and review wherever you find the show. That helps us find our audience. And yeah, check out Indian cinema. This movie's on Prime Video, just like Doom 1 and Doom 2. And Richard, thank you so much for joining me. This was fun. The Doom's over. No more Doom movies.
It is kind of sad, but
bittersweet, huh? Little bittersweet.
Yeah. But what I like about all this is that with each movie I watch, I meet a new star, and I sort of push back the borders of my international film knowledge with the actors and the movies. So I'm ready to do more as soon as you are.
It feels nice to watch something that you have never seen before and feel like you're discovering it for the first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, you know what, that's ultimately what my whole point with this show is. So until the next episode, we'll see you then.